Welcome, everyone, to the Addict's Mom's first TAMIt edition of our monthly series of Addiction Real Talk. Tonight, we're so honored to have Vechi Mutum joining us and offering insight into his story and his journey. In 2000, Vechi was a promising cadet in the Long Beach Search and Rescue Team who sustained an injury that put him in the hospital where he was given prescription opiates. This marked the beginning of an 11-year addiction that would cost him everything but his life. After getting clean, he dedicated his life to helping other people recover from addiction. Today, Vechi travels worldwide, sharing his journey to inspire others. His story is proof to anyone struggling with addiction that our past doesn't define our future. By listening tonight, I just know that you are all going to leave here with renewed hope, faith in that recovery is possible, and also that this is not a quick process, but by us continuing to learn and work on our own personal recovery, we gain knowledge about addiction and the recovery process, as well as strengthen our personal armory in learning how to best help our addicted loved ones. At the end of the session, we'll have a short Q&A, and Vechi has agreed to answer questions that we want answers to. We'll talk later in the program about how we will field the questions you may have for him. But for now, please help me welcome Vechi. And Vechi, thank you so much for giving us your time tonight. You are truly a blessing for every one of us, and we appreciate your dedication to helping others fight the battle on a daily basis. The floor is yours.
I can remember very, very early on having a feeling of less than. And I was my mom's firstborn. I was her baby boy. She absolutely adored me. We had a bond like, mothers and sons do, especially the firstborns. I felt very loved. She let me know that I was very loved. It wasn't perfect. No parent is perfect. There were issues with mom and dad. They would fight, so on and so forth. But she absolutely adored me and made sure I knew in every way, shape, and form. So going from there, having had that upbringing, there was really no sign showing there. There was nothing really going on that would show that something would happen later on. But internally looking back, I knew there was an issue. I don't know if you guys remember fruit stripe bubble gum. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It's this bubble gum that came in this package. And there'd be a section of red, and it was supposed to be like cherry colored. There was a section of green, it was supposed to be apple. And it would come on the ice cream truck. And I remember I would get this gum with my friends, and we get money from mom for the ice cream unit. And we would get this gum, and my friends would get their candy, and they'd have 1 pieces or 2 pieces, and then they would put the gum away, and they would save it for another time. That was not the case with me. I would eat the entire section of red as quickly as I possibly could. And I noticed that while I was eating the candy, I felt this sense of very much euphoria. I was very happy. I enjoyed it. But when the candy was gone, I didn't go back to feeling normal. Now I was upset. Now I wanted more candy. And if at 5 years old, you're starting to notice that you're very much attracted to feeling a certain way with certain things, that's the problem. Looking back, I think that was a first sign for me as a growing human being that I liked feeling good, and I liked feeling good very quickly, and I didn't like to feel bad ever. And that continued to go on throughout my life, and it ventured into different things. Sometimes it was behaviors. I wanted attention, whether it was good or bad. As long as the attention was on me, then hey, great. I would do whatever it took to get it. School was on and off. I would do really, really well in school sometimes, and then I'd do horrible. I'd be 2 years ahead in my grades, and then I wouldn't get up for school. And it broke my mom's heart because she saw me struggling. She was trying to help me with what I was doing. At this point, Dad was kind of in and out of the picture at the time. I should say this at this point, Dad was an alcoholic. He went to meetings. He was very active in the program. He was sober the entire time, but he wasn't really present in a lot of my life earlier on. So it was really mom, my brother, and my sister. And me being the oldest, I took on different roles. Again, it was like her and I. We were very much attached. Um, and at this time, 14 to 15 years old, um, when I would have those lows where I'd start to act out a little bit, they got worse. Now the police are getting involved. I'm getting in trouble. I'm a big guy. I look a lot older than I was at the time. I started to have run-ins with the law. I started to experiment with drugs and alcohol. And I started getting in trouble very, very quickly. It did not take long at all. I didn't know how to get into a little bit of trouble. I would get into a lot of trouble really, really fast. And when I didn't have structure or I didn't have something of a routine that really entertained me, I really, really, really went sideways. I refused to go to school. My mother and I got into huge fights. There was a girl I got involved with, which of course was my world at the time. That led to about a depression, where in 1994, I made an attempt on my own life after a fight with my mom. We were arguing, fighting back and forth. I think I took like 220 pills. I was 14 years old. I was very disconnected. I didn't know which way things were going. I was very uncomfortable. We went through the process of healing after that, trying to amend that relationship between parent and child and figuring out which way to go. And I ended up getting involved in a program that was in Mountain View, California, Northern California at the time. It was with some officers up there. It was called Racing for a Cause, and it was an off-duty police officer and a couple of guys who put together a race team. And I love cars. I always loved cars. And one of the first things that they'd done was they gave me a place to go and something I was very, very interested in. They gave me something to shoot for. They gave me some confidence. And for the next 2 to 4 years, I really straightened out. We would race every weekend. This was a point in my life where justifiably my mom wouldn't trust me with her purse in the room. And these guys were teaching me how to work on actual race cars. And I was going out on the weekends to different racetracks and racing with these guys. It was the first time I felt that I had earned any type of self-respect or accomplishment. My grades reflected that. I had a purpose. I was focused. And I was doing really, really well. The drugs and alcohol fell to the side. They just weren't interesting at that time. I was doing something else. I was really enjoying it. And things went well up until about 1997, 98, when we moved away from that. And we moved down to Long Beach, California. And it was all bad from there. I got disconnected from my group, from my purpose, got involved with drugs and alcohol again, this time more severe. Every time I got re-involved, it got more severe. This time getting the blackouts. I started experimenting with other drugs at the time, and really kind of just floundering, not knowing where to go. My mom and I start to fight. I'm still living at home, kind of venturing out on my own and then coming back, and things just not going well. And an offer came across the table just by happenstance. I was talking to a guy, and I called Tony Lopez, who'd actually run the Racing for a Cause program. And I told him, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm really just uncomfortable. I'm disconnected. I thought maybe I'll be a cop. Maybe that'll be what I want to do. And he said, Vechi, everybody loves a firefighter. And at that time, they had tryouts going for Long Beach Search and Rescue. And I had a friend of mine who was working mall security who said, hey, why don't you come by? And I went because I was bored. I almost showed up too late. And I made it through the first round of interviews and then the next round of interviews and got accepted into the little academy that they have there. And it's an explorer program. It's a volunteer outpost. But again, my life shifted. I had purpose. I had direction. I was killing it. Got a job at Starbucks. My mom and I's relationship had never been better. Her little boy, who she worried was going to make it, and went through all these struggles and ups and downs and nearly lost him. And, now I graduated that academy. I was waiting to become a firefighter. I was studying my heart out for that. I was working at Starbucks. I had a little entry-level management position. I had a team. I was loving life. Mom had gotten her son back. He was going to be a firefighter. Parents' dreams come true, right? Problem with that was that deep down, I was still having thoughts of things in my head. I was still very uncomfortable. I was still very dissatisfied. I was still questioning my value. And again, like, these things didn't come from anything mom did or did not do. These were inner dialogues telling me I wasn't good enough, or I was going to make it up, or not. I wasn't going to make it, or be good enough, or be able to make up for all the wrongs that I had done. The sense of guilt that you can have sometimes. And I think it was 6 months after graduation. I don't even think I never even went on a call out. But I was sitting behind the desk at or the counter at Starbucks, and I was horse playing with one of the managers. And they had come up behind me. And sometimes if you just gently push in the back of someone's knee, just gently, the knee collapses. And that happened. And it ended up with me going to the ER and getting a prescription. And I was super stressed at the time. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make this firefighter's test. I didn't know if I was going to make it into the department. Like, oh my God, what if I can't do this? Like, I'm going to let everybody down. There's all this stress. So here's this injury that occurs. And all of a sudden it's relaxed. I don't have to try anymore. I hurt myself. And this doctor gives me this prescription. And I was very naive at the time. I figured it's a prescription, it's from a doctor, I'm okay. I knew nothing about harder drugs and medicine, nothing. Not from doctors. That's not where you got drugs from. It doesn't, no. And I started taking those pills, and 2 weeks turned into 4, 4 turned into 6, 6 weeks turned into 3 months, turned into 6 months. And before I know it, I've quit my job. I've completely given up hope for ever being part of anything. And I am eating between 20 to 60 pills a night on this cycle. The girlfriend I'd abandoned. I was up all night. The people I was hanging out with were around only, their only existence was for me to feed off of them as far as drug goes, and for them to feed off of me. I lost a considerable amount of weight, the mood swings, the destabilization. Things got really, really bad. And a friend of mine had an intervention kind of with me, and she pulled me aside. She's like, hey, this has gotten out of control. I'm like, no, it's not. It's, I need this. The doctor gave it to me. And, she pointed out things like having to trade prescriptions because I'd run out too early. She brought up things like I quit eating. She brought up things like I had no plan after I got better to do anything. And life continued to come apart. I found I had to work. So I picked up a job bouncing at a bar somewhere. It's a big country club. Played country music, bunch of dance floors, and started seeing one of the bartenders there who had the same aspirations I did at the time, which was, how can I get as many pills as possible, and how can I stay loaded? I detached from my parents. Or from my mom. I ended up staying with her most of the time. My dad and I would speak through phone calls sometimes. I would call him and talk to him, and he knew what was going on. And he would kind of try to lean on me a little bit, like, hey, Vetch, this doesn't look good. Like, your dad suffered with these things. You might want to look into this. Be careful. And here was the deal. For whatever I wanted, for whatever reason I chose at the time, I didn't want to listen to anything I had to say. Like, as far as I was concerned in my life, anybody who was involved with AA or any other recovery program was a complete hypocrite and turd. I didn't want to hear it from him. I did, especially from him. I was upset with him. I was upset with him for reasons. Their relationship was very violent. I grew up around that. He was a pastor as well. So I would see him portray one thing and then act another way at home. And that didn't vibe with me. That didn't vibe with me. And for me, it created a mistrust for any type of religion. It created a mistrust for any type of 12-step program. So here I was trying to get well with zero trust and no motivation to go towards any type of higher power or a 12-step program. That gave me some difficulty. I think that's one of the reasons I stayed out for as long as I did. And I took my addiction to the depths that I took it to. This continued on, and I'll never forget the time where I knew I'd gone too far. I had started stealing my mom's checks, and I remember justifying it in my head. Oh, I'll pay her back, you know, this, that, or the other. I'd done it. A couple days later, she pulled me aside. She's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You would never do this. This is not my son. This is not, how could you?" And here's the thing that's super important to remember. And she seemed to know this, and I don't know how. She knew at that point she was not talking to her son. She was talking to her son's addiction. And I don't say that lightly. You know, we know now that during heavy use, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for empathy, for emotion, when you look at somebody and you feel their emotion, that's the prefrontal cortex. And during use, that is shut down. If you've ever been talking to your son or daughter and pleading with them, begging them to listen to you, to hear you, and it's like they're not there, it's because they're not. That part of the brain is shut off. The thing that is running their entire existence at that moment is called the limbic system. And it's this lizard brain in the back of your head. The prefrontal cortex is kind of the control center for that. It's the limbic system saying, you must get high. You're not thinking about consequences. You are simply looking to survive. And for me to survive, I needed those pills. I could explain why I stole later, but I needed those pills. I needed them more than anything. And she was devastated. She was heartbroken. And I made, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. And I was ashamed of myself. It's not like I didn't know I had done something horrific. I mean, my mom is 99% a single mom. She worked her butt off. She really did. We went through some hard times. There was poverty. I remember having to dilute milk for my little brother and sister. Like we struggled, and she was here in a foreign country. She had nobody to help her. Dad didn't give her child support. Like we struggled. And for me to do that, that's insanity. That's nuts. And then to justify it on top of it. It's not because they don't love you. It's not because that they don't have a love for you. It's because you're not talking to them anymore. The brain's hijacked. They're doing whatever I was doing whatever I could do just to stay high. Eventually, and this kept getting spiraling out of control. It led to shoplifting. I got arrested for the first time. And all the while, my family dynamic is starting to come apart. You know, I have a little brother and a little sister. I was their hero. You know, when I was in Long Beach Search and Rescue, my brother decided he wanted to go into the sheriff's department, and my sister was just beaming with pride at her older brother and all the amazing things he did. To see where I was at to where I had ended up was heart-wrenching for them. It was heartbreaking. And how could you go from one end to another, especially when there had been so much potential, there had been so much hope. Seeing my fall, which was becoming ever more rapid in its pace, I had run out of pills eventually and run out of doctors to fill them. And it was really kind of shocking to me how easily you could do that. You could just go to a different doctor. No one was checking. It was nuts. Between me and a girl I was dating or a guy that I was friends with, we can get whatever pills we wanted just by driving for a little bit. This is before online records and cross-referencing really was around. Anyway, I ran out of pills eventually, and something very frightening happened. I got physically ill, very ill, for a considerable amount of time. And the girlfriend had enough of me. She was tired of me taking her pills and living off of her couch. So I ended up back at my mom's house with nothing. And she let me back in again. And I just felt so sick. opiate, and at this time I'd started using benzos heavily as well, Xanax, Valium. These are very powerful drugs that actually working in the industry now, being in the industry now, you have to go to a hospital. There's a risk of death. I quit taking them cold turkey. I was awake for 3 weeks. I hallucinated. I cold sweat, sick. I mean, it's not pretty. And I could not take the withdrawals. They were so intensely painful. And there was this guy down the street who suggested that I stop by this other guy's house who happened to live close to us. And he had some meth. And he told me, you know, if you just take a couple hits off that meth, it'll take your withdrawals away. And at this point, I'm willing to try anything. So that's what I did. And whatever brakes were on, my using came off completely. I thought I'd figured out the secret code. Now I could work consistently without being tired. I didn't have withdrawals. I figured I'd found the magic key. And over the next 8 years, I tore every bit of hope out of my life. Every single piece. I believe within 1 year, I was in and out of jail 16 times. Possession, theft, nearly got caught up in a couple situations. I decided that the only way to really keep myself in drugs was to help move them for people or pick them up. And I ended up in some pretty heavy times. Pretty heavy times. My mom finally booted me out of the house. The sheriff's department, who my brother was joining at the time, poor guy, raided my house. They kicked down my mom's front door, looking for me. I was not there. They found drugs in her home. And in the state of California, I don't know how it is other places, but if they find drugs in your home, they can confiscate your home. And this is my mom's house. You know, we lived in her car for a little bit. Like, this was her home. She worked for 20 years to get this house. And here I was taking these risks with her home, with my brother's home, my sister's home. And I'd gotten involved in a relationship. I'd found another girl to kind of work off of, and her work off of me. And we were stealing and lying and cheating everybody we could, to the point of complete catastrophe. You'd think that would have been my bottom. It was not. That girl and I were together for 4 years. She ended up getting pregnant during her use. And we lost that child to Department of Child Family Services in a hotel in Long Beach because we had drugs in the room. My mother finally filed a restraining order against me to keep me away from the home. And I had become homeless. I had a laptop. My dad at this time, he died of a heart attack suddenly. I got his laptop out of the deal. So I was walking around Lakewood, Long Beach, California, with his laptop, homeless. And I was sleeping behind Allen Party Supply, and I was living under the bridge on the 91 in Buffalo. That was my existence. Gone from A-list, Long Beach Search and Rescue, bright and shiny, everything amazing, to I'm homeless, walking the streets. My mother has a restraining order on me. I'm not welcome around anybody in my life who means anything to me. That was it. I figured I was done. And at this point, there becomes a self-hatred, at least for me, a self-hatred so intense. You're like, this is it. This is how I'm going to die. I might as well do it high. And the trick to this piece is, for an addict, telling ourselves these things gives us room to keep using. Oh, I'm never going to get well anyway. I'm going to screw this up. I might as well just stay high. And it's our addiction tricking us into staying. Even at this point, my mom would call. She'd have me keep my phone connected. She would bring me food that she could help, that she please. She reached out to so many places trying to get me in somewhere. She befriended the officers who'd come to the house looking for me to pick me up on warrants, begging them. She'd show them my own Long Beach Search and Rescue uniform. She would tell them, you don't understand. This isn't him. You don't understand. There's got to be a way. He's got to still be in there somewhere. Now, I'd given up on me. I'm like, I'm done. This is my existence. I'm going to end up dead or in jail. I was counting on jail. I'd done some stuff with some people and owed some people money that, it's not a big deal. You owe somebody that amount of money, they get rid of you. That's just the way it was. This was my existence that I'd settled with. That child that we had lost to Department of Child Family Services, thank God my mother ended up adopting. Thank God. But me and that girl wound up back together, and we had another child, all while homeless on the streets. So it was 2011. We had what we like to consider a deep freeze here on the West Coast in Long Beach. I think it got down to like 40 degrees, which for you East Coasters is nothing. I think you guys still wear shorts in that weather. And I had woken up. I was breaking into laundry rooms to sleep because right at 11 o'clock they would lock them, and it was warm enough. And I couldn't get into a laundry room that night, so I was actually behind the dumpster at Allen Party Supply. And when I'd woken up, I tried to take a couple steps, and my feet were frozen. I fell to the ground, and it scared the daylights out of me. It's like, oh my God, my feet are gonna rot off. And I ran to the coffee bean across the street, and I had change for a phone call, and I called my mom. And I picked up a circular. I don't know if you guys have Big Fives out there, and there was a coupon in it for a sleeping bag. And I begged my mom for the sleeping bag. Begged her, Mom, I got this. There's a coupon for a sleeping bag. It's $20. Can you please help me? And my mom took this big, heavy breath, and she said, no. I was like, Mom, no, Mom, you don't understand. I don't expect you to give the money. I have a coupon. You just buy me the sleeping bag. And she took another deep and heavy breath, and she said, no. And something you guys may not know as parents, but we know as children, and our addiction knows, every time you guys ever failed us, every time you ever fell short, every time you ever broke a promise, we are emotional terrorists to the nth degree. I called her every name in the book. I blamed her for Dad leaving. I blamed her for everything I possibly could because I could not get what I wanted out of her. She listened to me rant and rave for the next 11 or 12 minutes. And then she took another heavy breath and she said, Vechi, I love you with all my heart. But you will no longer use my money, my resources, or my love to kill my son. Good luck. And hung up. It was the first time anyone had ever referred to my addiction as separate from me. I can't imagine being a father now. I can't imagine what kind of strength that took. If she bought me that sleeping bag, I'd still be out there, comfortable. I'm loaded. It's okay. And she took that comfort from me. 4 weeks later, I walked into an indigent men's detox here in Costa Mesa, California, called Charlie Street. I've been sober since. God willing, I'll have 9 years on November 23rd of this year. Her making sure that I had nothing to fall back on, her making sure that I would not use her resources to kill her son, changed my life. That started a path for me. I started working a program. I started asking for help. I remember waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking, my God, who did this to me? My life was so great. And I started realizing every decision I'd ever made, the guy who'd been in charge of making my decisions had been trying to kill me for the last 20 years, and I was letting him. I started taking direction. I started helping. I started going to those AA meetings, and I started listening to what a higher power might be. One foot at a time, one in front of another, and things started to open up for me. I started to get some self-confidence. I started to figure maybe I'm more than that. And I started questioning the BS I was feeding myself to stay loaded and to justify my behaviors. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not, especially for the way that we as addicts, as your children, know how to absolutely manipulate you into getting what we want. We know better than anybody, better than your own parents, how you've let us down and how to use that to our ultimate advantage. She knew that there was a possibility I might not make it. But she knew that she had power in one sense, and that she decided where her resources and where her love would go to, where it would be spent, what it would feed. And it wasn't going to be my addiction anymore. You know, we spent a good year not talking. And when I finally got my chip, I took it to her. I was going to visit that daughter that she'd taken custody of. And I asked her, Mom, why didn't you ever buy me that sleeping bag? And she told me, you were not going to use my love and my resources to kill my son. Things have been very different since then. I've been graced with a lot of opportunity. I fought for it as well. I had to fight a lot of demons as far as who I believed I was. And, you know, going from being on the street and being homeless to living indoors is weird. I slept with my clothes on for the first year or so. You become conditioned to certain things. But my life's different now. That second child that we had, I just recently got full custody of. Went to court, walked into a courtroom where I lost the child and got custody back. I do my best to be a good father these days. I make mistakes just like anybody else. I read books, I ask questions, and I try not to repeat the same mistakes that was done in my childhood. Hope is an interesting thing. Knowing that I could have died out there when my mom made the decision she made had to be very, very difficult, because that was a very real possibility. Her having the courage to make sure it wasn't done with her permission or her co-signature, I hope that's a decision I never have to make. I work with a lot of parents now in trying to guide them and sharing my story. Because and I understand the thinking, or at least if they're here, or at least if they're in a room, or at least if they're close, or at least if I know, all you're doing is making it comfortable for them to continue on using the way that they are. And as long as they're comfortable using, they're not going to quit. It wasn't until I was so uncomfortable with freezing on the streets, eating out of trash cans, feeling like a complete, utter piece of crap that I threw my spiritual hands up, both internally and externally, and said, I'm done. But if I had a sleeping bag, hotel room, some food, a ride, probably wouldn't have been so bad. Probably wouldn't have been so bad. I think that's it as far as the story goes. What I do now is very different. I work with parents on a day-to-day basis. My living amends to my mom, for those of you who have kids in the 12-step program, and I went to her and I said, Mom, how do I make this right? She said, Vechi, you help every parent you can, no matter what. There's no help for us out there, and they treat us like trash. So I said, all right, Mom. So I appreciate you guys in helping me make a continuing living amends to my mom today. I'm going to be happy to answer any questions you guys might have. I'm sorry if I ran over, did I?
No, you did great, Vechi. Thank you so much. You are such a blessing, and oh boy, your mom is something else. I mean, your story in itself is just awesome, but you know, the story of your mom and her strength, it does give hope to all of us. And you do have such an amazing story and journey, and it does nothing but warm my heart to hear of your story and your recovery, and look at you now. And it's just exactly what we as moms that are still, you know, some of us are still struggling with this with our kids, others are doing well. um, it just makes a big difference to be able to know that it's possible. And you know, bless you for what you're doing. to share your story and to help others, because it really does make a difference.
It
We
is
appreciate you for that.
possible. And my guys, when I work with them directly, and here's the excuses or justifications I'll take. I'll take you don't want to. I'll take you don't feel like it. I'll take you're not ready, but don't tell me you can't. Don't tell me you can't. I've gone from living under a bridge and eating out of trash cans. I bought my first home 2 years ago. I have a job. I have adult stuff like health insurance. Like I don't want to hear you can't. You're not ready. I wasn't ready for 10 years. My mom chased me. Oh my God, that poor woman in the rain with, Jumbo Jacks from Jack in the Box, just begging me to eat something. She would chase me down the street. There were people saying, hey, I know of a place you can go here for free, or I'll pay for you to go here. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to go. And it doesn't matter how bad you may want it for them. If they're not ready, they're not ready. Working in this industry for the last 8.5 years, the willingness is the most invaluable thing. I have seen somebody come in with all the finances in the world, and everything looks great, and they're not ready. They want out in 10 seconds. And I've seen a guy bang on the door, begging to sweep floors, make it through some of the most intense and painful things his entire life, because he was done with what was going on in his life. And it's not a picnic either. There's life's in session. And for the parents as well, when they do get sober, there's not a protective shield around them. There isn't a force field. Life's in session. Things are going to happen. The boyfriend, the girlfriend may show up or leave, or both of them. You never know what's going to occur. You never know what's going to occur. When they've made a decision to stay there, I've had some pretty rough times over the last couple of years, and it's not stuff that you're prepared to deal with. There's no way to prepare a parent to lose a child. My fiance and I lost a child earlier on last year, and it was one of the most devastating things I've ever gone through in my life. I can't. There's no way to describe what that feeling does or where it takes you. There just isn't. So when I understand when my parents are desperately fighting for their children's lives, I understand that wholeheartedly. But there is hope, and they can get it. And sometimes the best thing you can do for them is let them fail a little. Let them fail a little. Let them get a little uncomfortable. Is there a risk? There is absolutely a risk. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. There is a risk. They could die. But here's the difference. They're going to do what they're going to do, and either they're going to do it with your help and your money, maybe in your car going to pick up dope, maybe in the hotel room you just bought them just so they could be inside for one night, or they're going to do it knowing that their family and their loved ones in no way, shape, or form was going to help perpetuate a disease that was trying to kill them. That's the stance that saved my life.
You're absolutely right. We have discussions about this quite often, and it's perfectly the way your mother stated it. It's perfect. I thought it myself. I've tried it. I, still work at it. So like you said, it's a work in progress, and we work on our recoveries so that we get better to be able to help our child or not help them in the wrong ways. So makes perfect sense.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Vechi. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so one of the conversations we have, or I have with guys, when your children find out that they're getting help or that they're talking to a support group, they know it's over. They know it's done. There's a running joke. Oh, your mom's in Al-Anon, man. She's got a black belt. You're finished. She's got a support group. They're canceling the credit cards. The car's gone out the window. Like, you ain't getting nothing, bro. You're done. Time to get your shit together. It's known in the community. Parents start to talk to other parents. Parents start to get well. Guess what? The kids have got to get well too. Or they got to kick and stomp, and they got to continue on their pathway without the help.
Yep.
You guys getting well helps us.
Absolutely.
Vechi, thank you so much for giving us your time tonight and for sharing your story with us. It definitely gives us hope, and for that, we're thankful. Thank you also to everyone who had joined in tonight. I hope you enjoyed this first edition of TAMIt, and be sure and keep an eye out for notices of next month's edition and topic for TAMIt, and we hope you will join us again. Have a great evening, everyone.